So buyers are getting all sorts of feedback and advice right now about whether they should buy a home or whether they should hit pause. Some people are saying this is a great opportunity, prices have slowed down and they've dipped a little bit and there's a lot more value, while other people are saying you should just wait because prices are going to fall even further. And I don't think either answer is 100% correct. I think the correct answer is a little bit more nuanced than that. Now, I should say that when a lot of people ask me, should I buy a home right now? What they're really saying is, our prices are going to fall further. I mean, that's kind of at the heart of what they're asking. And the challenge, of course, with that is nobody knows, and if you missed it, I have another video where I talk about, how low home prices might fall, unpacking some of the expectations economists have and the circumstances under which they might be wrong. So I encourage you to watch that. But the point of that is nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. And while I think using some of these more broader macro trends in our economy are important to keep an eye on to maybe guide our decisions a little bit, I actually think our home buying decisions, at least mine, are not entirely driven by that. I think there are three important things that I look for when thinking about should I be buying a home in today's market. The first, of course, are personal circumstances. The second are the very micro and local trends in the housing market I'm looking at buying in and for the type of home I'm looking in. And the third are these broader, macroeconomic trends I'm seeing in the economy. And I'm going to try to pack each of them in a little bit more detail. So why do I say personal circumstances are the most important? I mean, from my experience, many of the clients who come to us who want to buy a home just want to buy a home. They do not want to be real estate wizards who are trying to predict the future path of home prices. They need a home for their family. And a lot of times it's because of some sort of personal circumstances or life event or life change that's leading them to buy a home. Now, having said that, we still need to ask some important questions. We had a buyer come to us a little while ago, recently actually, was looking at buying a condo, but she said she may need to sell it in a few years to relocate out of the city. And our advice to her was to maybe not buy because, while it's possible she may make money on that investment, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And the best way to mitigate your risk is to buy a home that you can stay in for the very long term, right? So, in that situation, our advice was you should probably not buy because of the potential uncertainty in the short term, and things are going to be most uncertain in the short term. Whereas, we had another couple of clients who had given up on buying a home in February because they've been priced out of the market, and in the areas that they were looking in, all of a sudden prices fell over $200,000 and $250,000, and they realized that they could finally buy a home for their family. And these buyers just decided to buy a home because they were priced out literally 3 months ago. And in their situation, they did not want to rent a year and hopefully get more value a year from now because they don't know if they will, they don't know if they'll be priced out again. They just wanted a home for their family, and they realized that maybe prices might fall a little bit a year from now or a little further, but in their minds, they're buying for 10 years and they're thinking about where home prices are going to be 10 years from now. So I think the last consideration, of course, is, are we renting? Are we owning? Do we need a home to sell? Do we need to move, right? Or do we have a place where we're living now where we're not rushed to move? Of course, because if we're pressured to move, then we need to make a more important decision if we should buy now or sign a lease and rent for a year and see what the market is like a year from now, right? So there's no perfect answer to any of these, but certainly I think our personal factors and situations are probably the primary factor that should influence sort of our key decision making when it comes to buying a home. So the second important consideration is the short-term outlook for the type of home and the neighborhood we're looking at buying in. Home prices change at very, very different rates depending on the type of home in the area that we're looking in. If home prices fall 20% in the Toronto area, they might fall 30 or 35% in some markets, only 5 and 10% in others. And I've spent a significant portion of my career actually researching some of these differences between the rate of change of home prices across areas, across neighborhoods, and some of the factors that drive them. I've shared my research with the Bank of Canada and the IMF. And 5 years ago, I decided to actually go back to graduate school to do a doctorate to explore this research further with the guidance of my professors at U of T to understand some of the factors that lead to these different rates of appreciation so we can try to make more informed decisions. And we can't predict the future, but we can kind of measure the relative risk and the differences across areas. And one, just simple example is, if we look at the trends that we've been seeing in the GTA, well, it's very likely, for example, that home prices in the downtown core are unlikely to fall as much as they are in the suburbs. And there are a number of reasons for that, but one very common one that we know is that they just didn't go up as much over the past 2 years. They didn't increase as much as the suburban homes have. So even knowing this slight relative difference is going to guide and inform our decision making. If I'm a home buyer and I'm looking at buying a home in the downtown core, I'm less worried about a 30+% crash in home prices. I think the probability of that happening is a lot lower. I'm going to be a little bit more confident if I'm buying a home there. Whereas if I'm buying a home in the outskirts of the suburbs where the market's very slow and homes are sitting on the market, I'm going to be more aggressive in my negotiations. I'm going to be lowballing sellers a lot more. I'm going to be more patient if I think prices actually might fall a little bit further in the future because there's a ton of inventory building up. So understanding these local trends informs our decision way more than sort of these global macroeconomic factors. In particular, if we want to buy a home in the next 6 to 9 to 12 months. So we really need to understand the local dynamics because that's going to tell us, should we jump in? How aggressive should we be in our negotiations? Or do we think prices actually might fall a little bit more and let's sit on the sidelines if we're not in a rush? So the last thing I want to talk about that should be guiding our decision are, of course, some of these global, these macroeconomic factors in Canada's housing market, like sort of the future path of interest rates, inflation, all of these things. And I think they might inform our decision making, but I don't think, at least for me, they're ultimately going to drive my decision. Because if we think about a popular quote by, Warren Buffett, he would often say, be fearful when other people are greedy and be greedy when other people are fearful, right? And if we want to sort of take that advice and be greedy when other people are fearful, that means getting a little bit of value from a slower market. When sellers are fearful that prices will be lower, there's less demand, there's more opportunity to negotiate. So that means if we want to be that buyer, we have to jump in when things are still a little bit uncertain. The moment we wait for all of the headlines to be great and confidence to return to the market and the green shoots of the economy are kind of, in front of us and everything's optimistic and the sellers are optimistic because they think they're going to get more money and buyers are rushing in, well, you've kind of missed the slowdown, right? And for the very anxious buyers, maybe that's what you need to do. But for the buyer who wants to get a little bit of value and isn't as concerned about timing the bottom, they just want to get some value, want to have some negotiating leverage. The fact is you have to buy when things are a little bit uncertain, when things are a little bit fearful. And I think that's the tension and the challenge all buyers are going to face in this market. Again, we can't predict when that time is. I think it's a personal decision. But again, if we go back to the previous section, I think a lot of that is a function of understanding what's going on in the market, in the house type that you're looking at. Even if the headlines are a little bit pessimistic right now, if we want a little bit of value, those tend to be the periods that we need to be jumping into the market. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you're looking for advice and guidance to navigate this volatile and challenging real estate market, you can click the link below to set up an appointment with me personally. For home buyers, I'm offering for a limited time a 50% off discount code for my home buyers bootcamp. The code's 50 off. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to email me at askjohn@movesmartly.com.